Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. On this very special day, we are taking a leap of faith in ourselves. We will proceed by just going through a quick introduction of myself and what I'm doing, and then dive straight into the tips and tricks to get you out of your comfort zone. My name is Muna. I am a trauma-informed mindset coach. I do also lead growth mindset workshops for business and individuals, and I support people during one-on-one sessions. In this webinar, we are going to dive into something pretty important. And I do love to use this quote from my dear friend, that growth happens on the other side of your comfort zone. It is really important to show up for yourself and to look at fear in the eyes and take the jump. That's what the leap of faith is for. Now, one exercise that we do love to do when we go through a workshop is often considering what is our definition of success. I know that for myself, success has really taken different shapes of form. And over the last 10 years, it has probably evolved 3 or 4 different times. And it continued to evolve. We say be careful what you wish for, and I think that's definitely something that have been shaping the way I've been looking at life and taking certain decisions. But one thing is for sure is that success is actually completely subjective. It's really depending on your own conditioning. It's really depending on your culture, the way you were brought up, how you were brought up, but also what you were led to believe during that process. And it's not only like your own values and beliefs, but what society has input into our minds and what we choose to pick from there. The great news of the fact that success is really different from one person to the other. It's different from you to me. And that just made us realize that actually we can choose how we define our own success. And the fact that we can choose that puts us a little bit more in control of our own narrative when it comes to success and achievement. So when we are in control, it can be scary. But the great news is that the only thing between us and success is ourselves. And by taking full ownership of the different responsibilities that we have around achieving what we set our mind to achieve, we are actually freeing ourselves and empowering ourselves to build the right path for us that we have chosen to be the right path for us, actually. And when I mention the right path, there is no right or wrong answer. It's just the path that makes us feel the most aligned with what we want to achieve. When it comes to self-confidence, so what we are here to discover today is how we can really empower ourselves and empower a version of ourselves to achieve bridge this gap between who we are today and who we want to be. And I think the first step to do that is really to lay the ground foundations. And most importantly, identify and understand what are the fears that are getting in our way. What is it that we are actually ourselves standing in our own way for? And one of the key examples that always come to mind when we talk about fear is we quite often like scared to express, or I know that only 10% of people do actually love public speaking, but we quite led in general, especially in corporate lives or when we represent anything, to take a stand and have to speak in front of a bunch of strangers. And by doing so, it is something that I was talking to some women during a Galentine event, and it is something that is scary at first, but the difference in between something really terrifying that was terrifying us for a long time and actually getting comfortable doing it was the practice. So to kind of look at the fear in the eyes here is to be able to acknowledge why this scares us off. For example, when it comes to imposter syndrome and believing that you are a fraud, trying to understand why you're believing that, who has input the idea into our mind, and why we are feeling that certain way. As a trauma-informed coach, this is something that comes up a lot with clients around certain traumas that they have lived during their childhood. But it can also affect any other traumas lived in adulthood, as well as in general, just society telling us or setting some rules for us that can like trouble a little bit our self-esteem. And once we understand that and we understand where it's coming from, it's a little easier, and we might not see it at first, but it is a little easier to then dissociate from that and understand that this voice and this lack of self-confidence doesn't really define us and is not who we are, but is actually simply a thought, and it's a normal fear to have, and that we can embrace it to empower ourselves to move forward. So one of the main points and the second step to empower ourselves is to confront the different evidence that we have. So despite the fact that I still get scared when I have important public speaking events, I always look back at all the previous ones that I have done successfully. And in fact, actually, it's very rare that there's been like a very terrible interaction. So it's making the fear not making sense anymore, because the more you practice and the more you build more new evidence and new proofs that you actually can do that and can do that very well, the more you actually empower yourself to do that even more and even better. The second step and the second tip to work towards embracing going out of our comfort zone is when it comes to planning. Now, when you're thinking about a career change, when you're thinking about life change, the most important thing is to have a certain set of goals or a large life vision towards which you want to head to. Now, one of the biggest challenge that I've had was always about dreaming big. It was always a struggle to like dream big and to have that vision that was big enough to think, oh my God, you're so crazy just to think about this. I've always had something that deep down forced me to think small and really just make things that I had already work for me and make me happy, as opposed to really like dream of something of a much bigger scale. And I think it's important to debunk that and understand that actually, well, I don't want to go cliche, but the sky is your limit. And the bigger you dream, the more you empower yourself to be able to achieve a lot more in that time spent working towards it. But the most important thing is not just to focus on like that dream or that end goal, but once you set your mind to it, to be able to really actually break it down in very small steps, right? So if I'm dreaming about geographical freedom, what am I doing to empower myself to not be limited by my physical space and the physical space necessary for my activity? So doing the right research can be a first step, because before I have to think of, oh, I have to launch a business online, or I have to do this and that. Okay, let's do some research. That's a very, very simple step that can start with. I can just do a search and figure things out later. Just one step. One simple step that is in between me and my vision, and just to kickstart the entire process. The next tip in terms of getting out of your comfort zone is something that is very interesting, because when we talk about assembling your team, we're thinking, okay, we're on this construction site, we've got to get like all our builders, and we need to hire employees, and we need to be like a full team. But what I do believe is that often we're just the sum of the 5 people we spend the most of our time with. And it's important to pick them very carefully. And I'm talking about the friends that you spend the most time with, the family members that you talk the most with. But it's important as well to think about the people that you bring into your life. So, for example, like my team wasn't just me, myself, and I. Yes, I'm running a business by myself, but I do hire help sometimes in the areas that are not in my expertise. But also, I do have a coach myself. I do have a therapist. I do work and look up to role models. I do have mentors. I have coworkers, other coaches, and other like entrepreneurs with who we share brainstorming sessions and with who we keep ourselves accountable. I have conversations with different partners with who we can like collaborate on certain things. And this little group is really, really important. And the sum of it is really what is making or breaking sometimes the most even greatest ideas to empower them or actually to just sink them down. Now, the fourth, but one of the most important thing as well, in terms of tips when it comes to getting out of your comfort zone, is around feedback. Because there's one sentence that I love is ask and you shall get. If you don't try, you will never know. And that is so crucial. It doesn't need to go and start by networking with individuals, complete strangers. You can start small and get that practice. The same way as with public speaking, you can get to practice and you can ask your family, you can ask your closest friends before you start asking strangers. Like for me, when I started studying NLP, I've gone through asking like some advice about how I could go about like a career change, how I could go about advising companies and consulting for others when it comes to mindset change. And the first thing I did was ask the closest people to me, and including my own family. And that's what led me to realize that actually my uncle has studied NLP like 30 years ago and launched an entire training department in the company he worked for. And that was something that I did not expect. And I would probably never have discovered if we didn't have that conversation and if I didn't initiate that conversation. So please don't shy away from asking, even when it seems obvious or even if you have any preconceived idea. And one tip is the more scary it is, the more you have to embrace it. And it's probably more likely to really gratify you with something very precious at the end. Now, when it comes to confidence, and when we talk about nurturing this confidence, solidifying this confidence, I want to say keep your eyes on the prize, but that's looking way too much towards the outcome. But what I mean here by keeping an eye on your achievement is all your little victories, all the steps, everything that you have already achieved. And I'm sure you have, and you probably don't realize it right now, but you have achieved already so much. You have achieved so much, and yet you still think that you're a failure. You still think that you're an imposter. You still think that you're not worth it, but you have achieved so much. And when you take the time to go through what you have achieved, these victories, these achievements, most importantly, all the lessons that you have learned, all the lessons that you have learned are true achievement. These are the true victory of your journey. Because when you learn, you grow and you get better. And that's how you can like grow this confidence, because learning is actually achieving in itself. I'm perfectly certain that if you really, really give it a good thinking, you will find something that you really did once already in the past that you didn't think you would ever be able to achieve, but you did it. And my point here is that if you did it once, you can certainly do it again. And you know that. So just remembering this and taking a clear, deep look into that is quite important. And finally, the last but not least, nurturing resilience. You can practice this as well everywhere. You can practice it in the smallest little areas, whether it comes to fitness, whether it comes to work, whether it comes to life and relationships. You can foster grit, which is one of the biggest structure of this all, is that capacity to continue overcome the challenges, but not only just overcome them, but grow from that experience. When we were talking about these lessons learned, that the more you continue overcoming like challenges and growing throughout the process and learning through the process, you become a lot more empowered and you can achieve a lot more. Now, I really do hope that these little tips and tricks have been quite helpful for you. And I just don't want to leave you without a reminder of why these tips and tricks are quite key and quite important. A lot of them are probably going to remind you of the key components of the growth mindset, especially when it comes to nurturing grit, when it comes to having a vision, embracing feedback. These are very key components and are making the complete difference in the way our mindset is set, actually. And the key thing is because actually, when it comes to resilience and when it comes to the state of our mindset, the real difference is that capacity to grow. Now, you can sit within a fixed mindset, be defensive and blame the world and blame it on luck and find excuses as to why you are not getting out of your comfort zone. Why are you not going after what you want? Or you can actually choose to adopt a different mindset whereby you're actually looking at the opportunities, where every challenge, everything that scares you, everything that gets in the way is actually one more opportunity to get ahead of the game. And once you choose to define these new rules that you want to play by, once you take ownership of your own life, you can then learn and continue to improve yourself and get closer to that person, remember, that person that you want to become and that you have eyes on. So I like to end this on a very nice quote from Carol Dweck, who really defines the growth mindset as something that when you try something and it doesn't work, and maybe people criticize you, in a fixed mindset, you would say, oh, you know what, I've tried this, it's over, it doesn't work. But in a growth mindset, you're going to be looking for what you've learned. I really hope that you can look back at what we've seen today and you can look at these tips and tricks and think, if there was one thing, really one thing that you could do that could get you closer to where you want to be. If there is that one thing, what would it be? What is that even just, and I'm sure you're going to figure it out. It feels like there's a lot of information and you're not there yet, but you're going to keep thinking about it. And eventually you are going to make a decision about what that step would look like for you. What is that step that's going to bridge the gap between where you are now and where you're going to be? I can't wait to witness any comments about when that's going to happen because you're going to have so much fun doing it. And I'm excited for you. Thank you so much for attending our session today. Once again, my name is Muna Laragat. I'm the founder and CEO of the Grid Makers. What we're offering is business workshops and coaching for corporations and individuals that want to get ahead in life without burning out. I'm a trauma-informed coach, and I'm so looking forward to be working with you.